7 o'clock, David and Amy.
And it looks like we have 6 people logged in.
Yep, and we're recording, so we'll be able to put it up online too. So start whenever you're ready.
Okay, great.
Hey, welcome. This is the Appraiser Training for the Big Fix here at Colorado. I'm David Jarrett, the affiliate challenge master for the Big Fix this year. And we also have Amy. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Amy Norder. I'm one of the other ACMs for the Big Fix. And we have 2 other ACMs who are not on the webinar with us, Megan O'Brien and Chris Dobbs.
And we're here to help you learn about how to do the appraising for the Big Fix here coming up for tournaments. And I'm going to go through the different, what our agenda is for today. And so we're going to be doing sort of a very quick, rapid overview of the challenge, so you can see what the lay of the land for the challenge is. And also do a quick overview of the score sheets and look so you can sort of see what the score sheets and what appraisers are going to be using at the tournament. We're going to have a short discussion about mobile scoring, because we're at a lot of the sites here in Colorado, we're going to be doing mobile scoring. We're actually going to be showing you a performance, a very short performance or a sample performance that we've put together. And that's used, and then we're going to use that to help go through the scoring. And so we're going to go through the scoring elements for that performance. And then we're going to also talk about tournament day flow and roles, and then end up with some questions and answers. That's what we're going to do. So let's talk about the overview of the challenge here. So let me switch that in so we can take a look at the overview of the challenge. And make this a little bit bigger so you can see it all. So big part of the Big Fix is teams are going to be designing and building an invention that solves a problem. And that problem may be anything that the team chooses. The key of this is that it must be a problem that they can actually solve on stage. So it can't be a dramatic portrayal of solving it, or a simulation of solving a problem. The invention actually needs to solve a problem. So for instance, if the team was going to show that they created a machine that traveled back in time to the dinosaurs, for instance, the expectation is that they would be able to actually create a machine that would actually travel back in time. You can't use theatrical dramatization of the invention. So it has to actually solve the problem. So it either has to be like picking up something, moving something, solving some problem associated with it. So that's really key for this challenge. And it's intended that the invention is going to use some technical means for solving that problem. The challenge needs to have a technical presentation associated with it, a theatrical presentation associated with it. And during that theatrical presentation, they need to actually have some type of invention artifact that's integrated into the story. And that invention artifact can be a plan or a document or a diagram or a prototype or an earlier version of the invention, but it needs to be a part of the story. Another key part of the story is that it needs to include a flashback. So it needs to have a time where during the story, it goes back and it shows a different time period and events that were earlier to the main part of the story. In addition to the invention and to the story, teams need to actually have an impact scenery. And so that impact scenery needs to be really something that integrates to the story and has a positive, negative, or neutral impact to the story. The teams need to select up to 3 different fields of technology for building and creating their impact scenery. And they must choose different fields of technology, of chemistry, computer science, electrical engineering, acoustical engineering, or mechanical engineering. And they get different points for including each one of these different fields. And then, just like with most challenges, we also have team choice elements, which are also part of the challenge. And so teams must produce 2 different team elements. And these are additional elements that might be costumes or set pieces or props or songs or things like this that are integrated into the performance. And then teams are also scored on these team choice elements. And we're going to go a little bit more in detail of these different elements as we go through the presentation today. The presentation areas at the sites are very small. And so the requirement is only this 10-foot by 8-foot area for the presentation area. So it's going to be a very tiny presentation area for this year for the technical challenge. And that's in a nutshell what the challenge is. So I'm going to hand it over to Amy, who's going to be talking about the score sheet, and I'm going to switch over to our score sheet elements here, and she can talk through the score sheet.
And I just want to mention, Chris, is that you that's called in?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. I thought that was you. It's only identifying you by your phone number.
Yeah, I was trying to jump into the computer, but it's not happy with me, so I just called in real quick. So.
Yeah, no worries. I just want to say we're glad you were able to join us, and I thought that was probably you. So thanks.
It's me.
Hello. Okay, so first thing I want to say, I can see from the list of participants that we have some veterans and some people who have heard a lot of this before, and we also have a few new people. So of course we're going to go through this as if none of you have ever heard it before, even though we know some of you have been around DI for quite a while. So on this prep area appraiser checklist, so this would be solely the prep area appraiser's job is to go through this with the team. So they're going to be looking for all of these elements that the team has to provide. So for instance, the tournament data form, their expense report, declaration of independence, etc. So when you read through the challenge and you see all of these requirements, before they set foot in the room, basically, someone will have gone through all of that with them. And then in addition, the safety issues, check with them if they're using things like batteries, strobe lights, etc. That person, whoever is the prep area appraiser, and it's generally one of the more experienced appraisers, does the prep area, because they typically will know what to do when there is a question or an issue that comes up with the team. So they will then deliver the team into the launch area, and you can see in the launch area, then they go through a few things with them about what the flow will be like, where to exit, and those kind of things, and what to do after their performance. So then they get handed off to the timekeeper announcer. So we will go through that in the flow, but just wanted people to be aware, if you're a story appraiser or a technical appraiser, you will not be going through this with the team. That will be another person. And we'll go through that when we look at the roles as well. So David, do you mind going over to the score sheet?
Yep.
Next page. Okay. So this is what you will see multiple copies of on tournament day. They will have up there where it has the team number, team name, all of that will be on a label. Oh, wait, no, we're doing mobile scoring. Sorry. So this will all be in the computer. Each of you will be assigned to either the technical portion of the presentation or the story portion so that you're not looking at all the elements at the same time. So we divide it up between the appraisers. Typically 2 or 3 are appraising each of those sections, so you will know exactly what you're looking at. So for instance, if you're a story appraiser, you are looking at section B. And so your job is to look at creativity of the story, clear and effective storytelling, integration, theatrical effect of the flashback. And then other people will be looking at the technical design and innovation and so forth. And then impact scenery is also one of the key elements of this challenge. And we will go through that a little bit more after you see the recording of the solution that some of your favorite challenge masters came up with. So anyway, so that's it on the score sheet. We will go through that a little bit later after we look at the presentation.
Thank you. And so let me do a quick overview about mobile scoring, about where we are with mobile scoring. So it's still varying about different sites about where we're going to be but we're going to be doing mostly mobile scoring. So if you're coming to the site, remember to be bringing a smartphone or a tablet and charger with you. And Wi-Fi will be available at the locations, and just stay tuned for more information going to follow on mobile scoring. But the important thing is to make sure that you bring your phone and your tablet along with it. We have a limited set of tablets that we can provide, but it's not a full set. So we're looking for appraisers to bring their phones with them.
Just as this is Kate, just on that mobile scoring, you're going to be working with a web-based application, so there's nothing that you have to download. There's no app to download on your phone. It's kind of like using a Google Doc where you're using an interface of the web to score.
And the elements are exactly what's on that other score sheet that we're showing, the paper form. It's just going to appear a little bit differently. But the way you score between the 0 and 30 ranges are all going to be the same for mobile scoring. So now we're going to shift gears and we're going to show a recording of a performance that we did.
David, I think Chris has something to say.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, just one thing I just want to recap on the training that they ran us all through on appraisers. I've had a few that I've kind of made comments to. They're like panicking a little bit, like, I don't know how to do this. Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, but what they were saying is they're going to kind of like have this, like in a week advance, we can send it out to you guys and you guys can kind of practice it on your phone already. And then day of the tournament, that will be cleared out and then it'll officially start. So you'll have a little hands-on kind of pre the tournament is from my understanding. Is that correct, Kate?
Yeah, you will have a chance to practice mobile scoring prior to the tournament. So it's going to be super easy and super fun.
Yeah, in terms of like the people at the site, it's going to be very straightforward for the appraisers that are at the site. So you don't be too worried about the changes that are happening.
Oh, did you see the question? And Yvonne, the answer is yes. There will be, did you all see her question? She asked, will there be paper to take notes? I would guess she means for things like awards and just to remember what it was that they did, just like we have that sheet. And
Absolutely.
Kate, saying that we would still
Yeah,
have.
so a lot of those other notes that we're going to have that are part of the appraiser packet, those will also be available.
Yep, you have the note sheets that you're used to having.
And you're still going to be doing sticky notes too.
Great question, Yvonne, thanks.
So Kate, do you want to show the video here of the performance? And this is a very rough performance, so you can sort of see with the different elements, and we're going to talk through the different elements that we're seeing in this performance.
Just pretend that these are like 5th graders. Right, David?
Exactly. Yeah.
Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Yep. Megan, I can't believe it. There's no one in my restaurant, in our pizzeria. We used to be so popular here. There's no one here. What can we do to actually bring people into our restaurant?
Oh my goodness, Bill, what happened?
I don't know. I remember back when we were filled with tons of people in this room.
I remember that too.
Let's go back.
Wow, look at all these people.
The place is filled with people.
There's so many people here. I can't find a table. It's packed.
We're packed. We're
Business
selling
is
so
booming.
many pizzas here at the pizza restaurant.
Wow, that is amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah. You know, I wonder what we could do to actually bring people in.
I know, it sounds like you have a real problem here.
I have a real problem.
Yeah.
You know, so one of the things that I did do is I bought, you know, you've been to those, you've seen those floppy men?
Oh, those guys that go like,
Yeah, exactly.
I love those guys.
I love those.
Yeah.
So I bought one on, you know, but the problem is I because we haven't been getting a lot of business here, I couldn't get the fan that actually inflated it.
those are expensive.
They're very expensive.
Oh my goodness.
And I also have a very bad back.
I know, your
and-
back is terrible.
And I can't bend down to actually turn those things on. So
Yeah.
I have this problem. I bought this. How do I actually inflate this and make this work?
Oh my goodness. You have a real problem on your hands, Bill. What are you
I
going to do?
Well, I have this idea here of using some water that would actually drip down into a bottle that would actually turn on. I have a leaf blower I bought from home that would actually turn on and inflate the floppy man.
Wow. That sounds like a really great idea.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how it works.
Let me see how this works. What else do you think we can actually use around the restaurant to make this a more interesting place?
Well, I was thinking maybe you could introduce some puzzles
Some puzzles, some
to your
games.
restaurant to
So,
maybe bring in some customers.
So while they're actually eating pizza, they can actually play some games. That's
Yeah.
a great idea.
So I got this for you, and I think it might help bring some business in.
Thank
so
you
you
very
can
much.
try
I think
that.
that'll be great around the restaurant.
Yeah.
So let me see if this works now. So I'm going to turn on to see if this actually will work. So I'm going to turn
You don't
the
have to bend
water on.
over.
I don't have to
That's-
bend
yeah.
over now. Let me turn this on.
If this works, this is going to bring in so many new
It's gonna
customers
bring in
for you.
so many new customers.
This is going to be great.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
It does take a while for this to turn on.
Well, maybe we can do the puzzle while we wait.
So the water is coming through, filling up so the water is coming in from the top down here and going into the water jug here.
Wow, this is a really nice invention, Bill.
Yeah. And then there's the going up to a pulley and then down to the leaf blower down below.
You worked really hard on this.
It's the Inflatomatic 2020.
Oh, it's like that. 2020. This is going to solve your problem.
This is going to solve my problem. It's going to bring in tons of customers into the restaurant.
Is it?
It is.
This is just like a real challenge.
Yes.
Sometimes there's white
This is
space.
the part where there's awkward silence.
Exactly.
Wow, that is going to bring in so many customers, Bill. I can't believe it. That was great. Okay, but wait, I noticed your windows are super dirty, and I want to clean them for you.
Let's
because-
clean the windows.
Yeah, because now you have all these customers. I want your windows to be really clean for people, so they can see in your restaurant, see how great you are. Whoa!
Well,
Bill, Voted best pizza.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Great job.
Nice work.
Time.
The end.
I know you guys were all super impressed with that performance.
It's an amazing performance.
It was awesome. First place for sure.
Hang on, I'm trying to get the share here right. Okay, there we go. So that was really a sample of what that performance might look like. And it had a lot of the elements in it. And so I wanted to go through and let's do some scoring associated with this. And so you can sort of see how, as an appraiser, how you would actually look at that performance. And so let me switch back over to the scoring sheet and we can look at the different portions here. So first, let's talk about, the first one is the invention. So the first two things are about the technical design and the technical innovation of the invention and the successful operation of the invention. So Chris, did you want to talk a little about the technical design versus technical innovation? Chris, are you still there?
I think he might be on mute.
Okay.
Chris, can you hear us?
So let me talk about the difference between what are these two different elements here for the invention. Technical design is really getting at whether really the effectiveness and the reliability of the invention. So was it repeatable? Did it actually do it correctly? Could you do it dozens of times correctly, for instance? Was it well put together? Was it high quality design in it? And that's different than what the innovation of the invention. So when innovation, you're looking at newness and uniqueness of it and the creativity of it. So and this is going to involve different spectrums of the types of technologies that are being used. And so if it's a very simple design and uses a lot of complex stuff and it's very unique, you're going to get these different scores with design and innovation. And as always, you're scoring from a 0 to 30 range, where 15 is sort of what you'd expect to be average for that age group for it. So that would be sort of what would be your expected technical design and innovation. The third one here is really the operation of the invention. So in the case of the presentation we just saw, the invention did work and it did operate successfully in it. Next one here is on the story. Do you want to, Amy, do you want to talk about the story portion?
Yeah.
Hey, just before you start, Amy, hey,
Yes.
can we get some of the attendees on to give us sort of some scores on on technical innovation and technical design? I'd just like to sort
Oh
of
yeah,
see.
great idea.
Yeah.
You
So
all
some
need-
of this is
chat
like
box.
elementary level.
there's a
Elementary
chat.
level, in your chat box, kind of tell us what you would have scored. You're going to assume a elementary school, even though they're way older than that. But
Yeah, they're very old 5th graders.
can you explain how it worked, David?
Yeah, it was hard to see how the invention worked.
Yeah, the way that the invention worked is that the floppy man was inflated using a leaf blower, but to turn on the leaf blower, there was water was turned on to drip down into a jug that filled up from the top container down to the bottom container, and that jug had a pulley that went up and came down and then wrapped around the trigger of the leaf blower to turn it on. That's how the invention worked. So it had combinations of using water and gravity and mechanical engineering to make it work.
So,
Ooh, 18s and 20s,
okay.
28s. Gary Christensen, 15, 15, and 20. 23 for design, 20 for information. It blew me away. Ha, 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 ha.
Cool.
Yvonne was
2015.
a 20 and a 15.
And
Cool.
the guidance, I think these are good. I mean, the guidance and all these things is always like what you think like what would be expected would be around a 15 and then go up and down from that. And so things that have more technical stuff would have definitely higher scores on the technical design portion of it. And then the uniqueness also would go up for the technical innovation from there.
So I want to address Chris's question. So Chris, it looked to me like your first scores were 28 and 28. And then you asked, am I way off? So the thing about appraising is that you want to have your own calibration. And so usually what will happen at the tournament is that we'll actually have you hold back typically your first 3 scores. And you don't want to compare your scores to anyone else's scores. You want to have your own frame of reference. So like David was saying, if what you would expect elementary kids to do would be 15, right? So that would be, okay, they solved the challenge and that's pretty much what I would expect from, an elementary school. In your mind, you might say that's 15. If it blew you away, it's going to be higher than that. On the other end, if it didn't blow you away, it was kind of disappointing, it would be on the lower end of that. But I just want to caution you not to compare what you're scoring to the person next to you. And yeah, that's great. I'm glad you asked that question. You said you're a first timer, so you're learning the lay of the land. And so this is just an important thing for you to know. It's your own range, but we want you to use the whole range too, the whole.
And I usually try, as an appraiser, I try to leave the 25 to 30 range very open, because you never know what you're going to see later in the day. And
it could be the very last team that does something that's so spectacular, and you've narrowed your range to the higher end to give the kids points, and then you don't really give yourself any room. The other thing I want to mention is on those scores like number 3, where it's an either or, all the appraisers who are scoring that have to agree. So if there's 3 appraisers doing the invention, you can't have 2 of them who say 20 and one of them says 0. That is one place where you do have to confer. And if one of the appraisers saw it happen, then it happened. So even if one of the appraisers says, well, I didn't see that happen, the other 2 appraisers say, oh yeah, it did happen. You have to give the kids the benefit of the doubt that it did happen.
And Chris, throughout the day, it really depends on the tournament size, but it can range from as small as like 4 teams in a tournament to up to like at state where we could have, and we'll probably have like on order of 20 to 22 teams performing.
So my phone's, this is Chris here, my phone's kind of working again. I'm going to jump in and pick on Dave a little bit. When you talk about technical innovation and technical design, you guys can't really see it in the video, but one thing as an appraiser I've done in the past is like your technical, how creative it is. What's very creative is what he did, but now maybe someone dropped a thing of food coloring in there and you can actually see the water trace down. That might get a little bit higher points than just regular water. And the other thing is I was giving him a hard time, is he used duct tape as his connector, and water's kind of getting past that duct tape. So, and then his blower, you can't see it, but he has a paper clip with duct tape holding it. So that's where you'd have to ask yourself really how reliable it is. So instead of scoring a 28 like you did, you might have scored a little bit lower because it's just held on by duct tape, versus if you did like a zip tie or something a little bit more. But once again, as we're talking about, you got to look at their age level. What, you know, are they middle level, high school, or are they elementary? So that's just kind of want to pipe in on that real quick on how you'd really judge your scores. That will change that part a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because like the workmanship that was done, like to attach it to the leaf blower, you couldn't see it, but it was like it was just sort of flimsy duct tape put together. So it's you can't see that.
And the other thing I want to address to Chris W., who's in the training, is that you will, the groups, the age groups will be grouped together. So it, like for Denver right now, we have 8 elementary teams and 3 middle school teams. We'll see all 8 elementary teams and then the middle, or the opposite. We'll see the middle and then the elementary. So it's not like you're going to see, you know, 3rd graders and then 8th graders. So you kind of get a sense after a few teams of like what, you know, kind of what you can expect to see from them. So then going back to the story, the people who will be appraising story are going to be looking at the creativity, you know, the storyline, characters. One thing that is important is, does the story have a beginning, a middle, and an end, which this one did. Is pretty clear. Well, okay, it did. Kate, come on. It was pretty clear who David's character was. He was the owner of the pizza restaurant. It wasn't quite so clear what Megan's character was. I guess she was just his helpful friend. And then the integration of the invention into the story. So in this case, was it important to the story? And you can say whether or not you thought that was true. And then the
artifact, just so people understand, the artifact was that little card that actually had a drawing of the invention on it. That was the artifact.
I don't think you could really see it, but the artifact just is some kind of documentation of the sort of the process. So it could be a photograph, drawing, journal, that kind of a thing that is shown through in the story. And then the theatrical effect of the flashback. So that, yes, that one was, you know, that one you might have to think about how to score. So how would you score section B, number 1, 2, 3, and 4? They're all up to 30. Sorry, I'm reading questions. Chris, you have lots of great questions. Thank you. So I'm going to answer Chris. Chris has a question about, are we judging them real time, especially the first 2 or 3, or can we watch a couple of them before we do our baseline? So you are appraising in real time, so you will want to enter your scores in. But then after you see your first few, you can then go back and say, well, you know what? I was a little hard on that first group, or I was a little lenient on that first group. Because again, you don't know what you're going to see until you see a few of them. So you will want to enter your scores and then just kind of reflect on it and think to yourself, you know, was I fair to those first 3 teams? And going back to Yvonne's question about keeping notes, that would be a good reason for you to jot a few notes down, like just about the story or something that will help you remember, like they had snowmen and they melted ice, you know, whatever is going to, because trust us, after the first few teams, you will completely forget what the first team even did, unless you have some notes to just trigger your memory. No, you don't have to be quiet. You don't have to be quiet, Chris. Your questions are great. You're with a lot of people who have done this for a while, so asking those questions is really awesome. Those are the things that we want to make sure we address, because sometimes we forget. David and I have both done this a very long time too, and Chris and Kate as well. So we forget what the questions can be.
So the one I want to drill down on is the integration. There's the B number 3, and so when you're judging that, it can always be a challenge to appraise integration. And really, what you need to look at for that one is if that was not part of the story, if I removed the artifact or that portion of it, would it made a difference? Would it change things? And that's the thing to look for integration. So like in the case of that presentation that was done there, yes, it was integrated, and it was sort of a flashback to a better time, to show a better time. But did these artifacts, or did the artifacts actually change the story? It wouldn't change the story one way or the other, really, too much. So you're really trying to look for, when you're trying to get things that are really in those upper ranges for integration, it has to be a very clear, that artifact needs to have a clear connection to the story, and if it was removed, it would change the story significantly. Next one is on theatrical impact here. So a lot of this is very similar as to the invention. It's with the technical design and innovation associated with it. And then the C3 is for the successful use of the technical methods for it. And these are whether we had 3 of the different fields of technology in the impact scenery. And so just for you to understand, like in the one that we showed, we only had one technical method, and that was chemistry. And that was when Megan sprayed grape juice onto the piece of paper, it revealed a message. And so it's using chemistry for creating an impact on the scenery. And so why don't we do a quick scoring of what people think here for that impact scenery that was done for technical design, innovation, successful use of technical methods, and theatrical effect of the impact scenery. What do people think in the presentation they saw? What do you think it scored as? They'll give people like about 20 minutes here, 20 seconds here.
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Yes, you'll have 20 minutes to appraise the teams. No, you won't. You'll have 2.5 minutes.
What do people think for impact scenery? So in that case here, the impact scenery was a piece of cardboard with a little messaging around a pizzeria, and then the impacts were the chemistry done on you know, changing for a hidden message. Anyone want to venture a guess?
Don't be shy.
Thank you, Yvonne. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, funny. Yeah, so on this one, so on number 3, this is another one of those, am I right, David and Kate, that everyone would have to agree on?
Yes, it's going to be
Number, right?
much more of
Because
a
it's
objective
kind of
score.
more- Okay.
Yep.
Do we want to go on to team choice?
Yeah. Yeah, and
Oh, there we go. There's a few more scores. Thank you.
You guys aren't scoring that well, man.
Kate's talking
Oh,
about
so
the team.
everybody's sort of getting mid-range scores.
Yeah,
Yvonne.
not the appraisers. I think she was talking about the team is not getting very good scores. No, you guys can't. With the only the panelists can see the responses.
Oh, sorry. Well, mostly it's between mostly around mid-scoring, around 12 to 17 is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, mid-range.
They do have to up their game. That was a little weak.
yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with those.
Mm-hmm. Did you agree on all 3? Oh, did we all agree on 3? I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You all said 5.
And then the last one here is on the team choice elements. And so in the presentation, we only had, I think, only one team choice element, and that was the puzzle box.
I thought you had, David, I thought you had said before your apron. You were
Oh,
considering.
the apron. Oh, that's right. So there's two team choice elements. One was my apron that I was wearing as my costume, and the other one was the box of puzzles that was used to sort of help bring in, customers could do puzzles during, while they're at the pizzeria. So let's do the first one as being the apron, and then team choice element number 2 is being the puzzle box. So what do you think they should be scored
So you're
as?
scoring on creativity and originality first, quality and workmanship, and integration into the presentation.
So Yvonne asked a question, and it is, can you tell us how you made the puzzle box cover? And I just want to point out that after the presentation, the appraisers are able to ask the team questions, and that would be a great kind of question to ask. Is how did you make this, or can you tell us where you got this idea, all that kind of stuff. So Yvonne, that's a great appraiser question. And the answer is they didn't make the puzzle box cover. It was a pre-made puzzle that was in the classroom. So it was basically like off the shelf.
And the apron was one that was just purchased at Williams Sonoma.
So it was a fancy apron and probably expensive. 5 for apron. Okay, 10, 10, 10, 10, 15. Okay.
Yeah. I would agree with those. They were not that great of team choice elements. It's almost like you forgot about them and then threw them in at the last minute.
Well, that's exactly what happened.
I would even be harsher on these scores. Like the integration, like if you were to remove them, I mean, yes, the apron sort of gives it's integrated into the pizzeria, but it's not like super memorable.
No.
And because I didn't create it myself, the creativity and originality, I think, is very low on it.
And even if they had done something like put a logo on it, like that would have upped the creativity. And the puzzle actually was, Megan was supposed to bring a painting that she had done, which would have been like workmanship and she forgot it at home. So it was literally a puzzle in the classroom. Do both? Oh, it's just the story appraisers who do the TCEs. Isn't that right?
It depends. It depends on the distribution and how many appraisers there are.
Okay.
But that's a fairly typical. So the typical organization is that there will be appraisers for the invention and impact scenery, and there'll be a separate set for the story and team choice elements. It tends to get divided along those lines, but it doesn't have to be that way. The important thing is that as an appraiser, you're not going to be filling out every single one of these typically at the tournament. You're only going to be responsible for a subset of them. Any other questions about this, about the scoring and how it's done? Any other questions?
So I know that their performance was less than stellar, but if you're a brand new appraiser, that really does give you a good idea about, kind of what you're looking for. So if you can appraise them, you are good to appraise, I promise you.
And what I really encourage people to do is to create their own scales. So imagine, particularly with the technical design and innovation, is think about things that are using different technical means. And so there's a huge spectrum of technical means from using very simple machines and mechanical solutions to very complex, more computer solutions and so forth. And so think about that spectrum about how you should be scoring it. And I can't give guidance on those, but I think you can sort of go around and think about how you would score different elements. And so like if someone came in with using a drill motor for something, how would you score that? Or if they used a skateboard for stuff, you know, think about those things. And if they used a computer or they did their own Arduino and they soldered their own stuff together, all of these things make big differences about how you score.
We had a question here from Yvonne about using, she says, can you talk about deductions if using theatrical solution to problem? Yep.
So that's a great question. And so one of the things that's with this challenge is that if the solution is more of a theatrical demonstration of it, then the teams will get a deduction from that. And the thinking behind that, so going back up here to this portion of the scoring sheet, is that you would still score them with the technical design and innovation as if it worked. That's really what the guidance is. Then what we will do is that then there'll be a separate deduction score sheet that you'd have to work with your head appraiser to then make compensations to, is it on the technical design and innovation of which one it should be taken off of and how you should be doing the adjustments. So it's really going to be a case by case about really how that deduction should occur on here. And that you're going to be working with your head appraiser to make that deduction. Any other questions? Okay. So we want to talk a little bit about what the tournament flow is. So typically it's about 20 minutes between performances. And this is sort of gives you a bit of a flow of what happens on tournament day. So the prep area portion takes about 15 minutes, and that overlaps with the previous performance. And so prep area usually starts first for about 15 minutes. Then getting to the launch line and getting the team ready around the launch line and ready to come into performance takes about another 2 minutes or so. The timekeeper announcer would do their announcing, and that's about approximately 2 minutes for doing the announcement. And that's getting the crowd going, and there's a script that's given to those appraisers to read. The timekeeper announcer will start time. It's an 8-minute performance, and so the team will do their performance. And then after the performance, all the appraisers will come and talk to the team. And we really encourage the appraisers to talk to the different, the technical elements and the story elements and the team choice elements. And so wherever you're appraising, find your team members, the team members that can speak to it, and then everyone sort of divides up and talks to the team and different team members during that time period. It's approximately about 3 minutes that you have for doing that. And then also the team does picking up of and moving out of the area. And then appraisers typically have about 2 minutes also to finalize their scores and getting their scores entered in. That is sort of what the general flow is. And you get into sort of this rhythm of getting to the launch line of performance, talking to the teams, and then entering your scores. And that's typically what happens at the tournament.
Hey,
Any
David.
questions about the flow?
David, I'm going to also add just something real quick. When you guys arrive, you'll probably arrive about an hour before your first team. You'll get breakfast from your appraiser lounge. You'll get a t-shirt. You'll get an appraiser gift. And then you're going to go and meet your team, and you guys are all going to talk about what your day is going to look like. There'll be plenty of food at your tournament site, and there will more than likely also be lunch, depending on your day. But there will be plenty of food. Most appraisers look for gluten-free. I mean, most tournaments do have gluten-free and vegetarian options, but if you need something a little bit more particular than that, you might need to bring your own lunch. But there's always tons of food at a DI tournament for you guys to eat.
And if you come to the NOCO tournament, I always have a lot of yummies on my table. I bribe you a little bit. So.
Yeah, there's no shortage of snacks. It's what gets us all through the day, right?
I should add to
That
the
is
list
correct.
snacks.
Yeah, Chris Bobs, there's a gentleman on here named Chris who wants to appraise at NOCO already. So.
Oh, there you go.
I'll take it.
Great. Any other questions? Because that's all I had here, and that's how we had it. And we really appreciate you spending your time and appraising at the tournament. It's really an amazing experience, and thank you very much for doing this for us. It's really it's going to be super fun.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions for us before we log off? Oh, thanks, Amber. You're awesome. Oh, Michael's asking, are we assigned to invention or story? You'll find that out from your RCM, from the regional challenge master. That person should be contacting you and letting you know what your role will be at the tournament.
And that's usually you
you can let them know.
like an hour before the tournament starts, and discuss between all the appraisers at that time. And if you have a particular preference, those are the times to sort of bring that up with the head appraiser.
You're welcome, Yvonne. She says, thanks for having a performance. It was an amazing performance. By a two-person team. That was a really great two-person team.
Great.
Chris, your questions were great. Chris W.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll
Thank
see
you all. Please let us know if you have any questions. You can email us.